Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Master's Diary. My guest today is someone who 43 years after her breakthrough performance still remains the benchmark for perfection in sport. The legacy of the Olympic Games is built on the feats of legends like the great Nadia Comaneci. Nadia, thank you so much for speaking to us. There are very few sports persons who transcend their sport. In a sense, they become the representative for their sport. You could talk about Jack Nicklaus in golf. You could talk about the great Muhammad Ali in boxing, Michael Schumacher in Formula One. And when it comes to gymnastics, there's you. Is it a heavy mantle to bear?
No, actually, thank you for having me in your show. I've been a fan of your country for a long time, and I've been there many times. And, as you mentioned, it's been 43 years since I did the Olympics in 1976. I was too young to understand what happened at the time, and I'm surprised that people still remember moments like that after such a long time. We live in a fast world right now, and we have the tendency to forget what happened yesterday or 2 weeks ago. Things happen all the time, and just to have people come to me and say, you motivated me, you made an impact in my life to do something good, it's amazing because it's been such a long time.
But what it also does, it talks about what you achieved, because to achieve that sort of perfection is what makes people like us remember after so many years. And to become a global celebrity, you have to achieve something which stands the test of time.
Yes, it does. But I didn't compete to achieve perfection. I just went actually there to do my best. Maybe I was just a little better than everybody else, or maybe a little quicker than everybody else, to be able to score that first perfect 10, because there was one other gymnast after me who scored a 10, but yes, people don't talk about that, and I'm mentioning Nellie Kim, who is a dear friend of mine. But things happen so fast, and you go there, the routine is 1 minute and 20 seconds, and you hope that you do your best, the best routine that you've done in training, because you have only one shot. And I was too young to think too much, I was in gymnastics for 80 years, and I thought I knew what I was doing.
Yes, and I'll get to that, but so much of your career, Nadia, is celebrated, but your journey in life has been equally tough, if not tougher. The good thing is that after all that you've gone through, you're still smiling, and that is the best thing, to win the battle against life.
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people had worse than me, the difficult lives, and I never complain about my life. But being born think about that, I was born in a country where I didn't know the difference between a free country and communist country. And I was a child, and I had opportunities to play sports. And it was because of the government allowance to be able to be involved in sports. And I was lucky that gymnastics was a sport in a time that for women there are not too many sports. And I was busy with sport. I was not busy to see what's going on around. As I was becoming an adult, I understood the difference, because I had the opportunity to travel as a child. Not many kids my age were doing that. I was doing that through sports, and I could see the difference in time. But I was too happy with my sport, and too happy and busy to do the sport. And when I retired, I was an adult, and I understood a little bit what's going on.
A lot of people say, and I've spoken to a lot of Olympic athletes from India and also abroad as well, that you put the most amount of effort into training, and that is what translates into success. For you, the kind of effort you put into training, you've put in even a greater effort in that sense to rebuild your life, and that's marvelous. Usually you've seen athletes, when their career is over, they've had, problems in adjusting to a different sort of life. But for you, it's been a constant struggle, and you've come out on top of the podium, if I could say so.
As an athlete, you never give up. So if you learn a trick that takes time and it's difficult, what are you going to just stop and not doing through the end? It's the same thing through life. I think that sport is teaching us that it's not all roses, and it shouldn't be all roses, because their life is too I don't know, simple and boring.
Yeah. No, but when you say simple and boring, Nadia, a lot of people perhaps would not know the kind of struggles you've had to go through. You were a national treasure in Romania, but you defected. You walked 6 or 7 hours through the snow, not knowing if you would live to tell the tale. That's a very different. Sport gives you second chances. Life doesn't.
I think I was born to be a determined person, and once my intuition was always right, and once I decide to do that, I just don't stop in the middle.
Yes, and that's why you are the legend that you are. In Laureus, one of the founding fathers of Laureus is the great Nelson Mandela, and his very famous book, A Long Walk to Freedom. I think I could invoke a bit of Madiba when I ask you to recount your long walk to freedom.
He is our patron of everything that we studied here with Laureus and Laureus Sport for Good, and everybody remembers when he said those words, sport has the power to change the world, and I always say the sport has actually changed my life, and I am here today because of that little decision that my parents made to sign me up to gymnastics when I was 6.
Yes, and a lot of people talk about that first initiation into sport. You were very young. You used to love doing cartwheels. You were a bundle of energy, and we've heard that a lot about a lot of these young kids, but to take that, you needed someone special. Your coach spotted you, and that's where the journey began.
I like the competition always, and I like to challenge myself. And if I was asked to do 10 routines, I wanted to do 12. I always wanted to do more. I don't know why, because this is the way I am. And I think that little thing every day, 1 or 2 more repetition, got me just a little more ahead than everybody else at that time.
Yes, because a lot of people will stick to 10, maybe do 9 and say no, but the true champions are the ones who push the boundaries.
I always said, I bet I can do 12.
But when did you realize, ma'am, that sport was an escape for you? It was an escape from the suffocation, from the rigidity of life. You wanted your family to be happy. You wanted your family to get good basic facilities. There were times you've even slept on the floor of your house with your mother and your brother just to stay warm. It was a difficult life. So when did you realize that sport gave you that escape?
It was difficult, but it was not only for me. A lot of people, a big population of the country lived under the same circumstances. Sport, I didn't do sport because I knew this is going to give me a chance. I did sport because I loved it, but I realized what I gained through that. So my life became richer because I was traveling and making a lot of friends from outside of the country, and this is how it happened. It's not like you make decision in life, but what happened now, and you decide what's happened next. I couldn't say what will happen in 5 years or 10 years.
Okay, since you said you traveled a lot, I'm going to touch upon an important phase in your life because that's my next question. Your breakthrough performance was this American Cup in 1976. But if I could play with words, I would say it planted the seeds of a partnership that bore fruit many, many years later. What do you remember of that?
Well, I was too young to think about what was going to happen later. I was 14, and this was the American Cup in Madison Square Garden in New York. And that was just before the Olympics, actually. And there was the time when I did my first double back somersault, and it was a big deal in the 70s for women. And I won the competition, and Bart Connor, a U.S. gymnast, won the competition for men's side. And I remember we were on the podium, and we celebrated. He gave me a kiss on the cheek, but we're athletes, good gymnasts. That's we're kids. Yeah. So it was nice. I went back, and I was with my family, and I went back to to my program, and didn't think about that too much until I left Romania in '89. I reconnected with Bart. Actually, I reconnected with him in the '80s at some gymnastic exhibitions as athletes. But mostly I reconnected with him when I came to the States.
Yes, I'll come to that because he arrived like a knight in shining armor on a specially hired helicopter. I'll get to that. But you left from there, as you said, to the Olympics. You were 14. I remember asking you this question at the London Olympics. Did you realize what the Olympics meant when you were 14, when you reached there?
No, I didn't realize. I was happy that I did a good job, and I didn't understand the history. I knew what 10 means because 10 is the highest score you can get. I realized what I've done a little when I went back to Romania, and there were 10,000 people at the airport, which I didn't understand why.
What happened? What just happened? Okay.
What happened, and all the celebrations. So, but my life didn't stop there with gymnastics. I went on and, train. I had like 2-3 days of celebration, and then went back to the gym because you go to the gym, you go to school, you're 15.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
But, coming from a communist regime, ma'am, was the Olympics a sense an eye-opener for you to see all these athletes of the world unite? Your sport had some great champions, Larissa Latina and all those, but gymnastics still didn't have that global profile which, say, an athletics or a swimming had. But your performance in Montreal took gymnastics right up there. I mean, after that, everyone started speaking about gymnastics in the same breath as athletics, swimming, boxing.
They had some. Gymnastics had some push in the '72 games with the Soviet Union bloc, and '76 was the history. I think that probably it's not the medals, it's the 10 and the history that was made that people remember and probably put gymnastics on a higher pedestal. And it's very popular now, since then. Only in the States, there are almost close to 4 million kids who do gymnastics. So they all want that opportunity.
But it's all because of you. That's your legacy. It's all because of you. You started the trend.
Every 30, 40 years, there comes somebody who just makes...
We're still in the Nadia era. We haven't gone to the next era yet.
Well, we do have Simone Biles right now, who's this generation, motivation.
Yeah. You ask any sports buff, and we come from India, which is way away, and gymnastics is now starting to see a kind of a upsurge because of Deepa Karmakar. But you ask anyone who's related to sport about Nadia, and they will say the perfect 10. Yes. It's all about perfection. After all these years, can you still remember that perfect execution? Tell me what you remember about that first perfect 10. Because you remember the first man who climbed Everest. So that first perfect 10, you had 7 in Montreal, but that first one is what caused shock waves around the world.
Yeah, I do remember. There was the uneven bars, the compulsory routine. That's a routine that everybody does, the same actually at the time. I think that I just wanted to do something a little more, with more amplitude than everybody else, just to stand up. And I believe the person before me got 995 or 9, something like that. And I think there was no more place to go. The judges gave me, but I don't think all the 4 judges gave me 10. I think there was a 99 and 3 10s.
Okay. But the story of the 3 10s, Nadia, is one which has gone into legend because the scoreboard showed it actually as the worst score possible, a 1.00. And I think that itself added to the legend. The first 10, they couldn't show it on the scoreboard because someone said, hey, you can never get a perfect 10 in gymnastics. And that is perhaps what, thanks to YouTube, what makes it even greater today.
Well, they didn't create the scoreboards to accommodate the 10 because they were told there will be no person to score a 10. They said perfection is not going to be possible. So I think the scoreboard was not created with enough lights and spaces to accommodate a 10. And when they were supposed to show a 10, they were very confused because the only way they could show a 10 was the 1.00.
But did you realize when they showed the 1.00?
I didn't realize actually because I don't watch the scoreboard. And I finished and then I was getting ready I was the last one in my team. And I had to stand up and just go to the balance beam and march. And then when the 10 came, I looked around because there was a lot of noise in the arena. And that's why I saw the 1.00, and I look at my teammates, I laugh a little because I didn't understand what the problem was.
Here was the greatest moment in sport, in your sport, and you didn't realize what was going on.
No, I didn't realize, but then I realized, it's something wrong, but it's a 10, but there's the only way they can show a 10.
And you were this, as you said to me previously, you were this quiet kind of a person within your team, you were shielded. How did you relate to being suddenly becoming the sensation inside the village. It's a different thing being outside the village with fans, but inside the village, it's all fellow sports persons. Mark Spitz told me last year he was mobbed. He was mobbed and he actually left the village that night he won his 7th gold. So for you, how did you deal with it? Because gymnastics is over a certain period of time.
Gymnastics took a long time, so it's at least 10 days. So when this was over, we left. We didn't stay in Olympic Village. All the Romanian delegation left, the gymnastic delegation. So yeah, I mean, I was a little mobbed, but that wasn't bad. I was more interested to, you know, to connect with people, the stars of the Olympics that I knew from television. Teofilo Stevenson, the boxer, was there, and others that I knew, but everybody was busy with their own thing. But I could see that they were, after the success that I had, I could see that they stopped and they were looking at me and said, "This is that little girl that got the 10."
That's the perfect endorsement of what you achieved, because I remember in 1980 the Indian hockey team won a gold in Moscow, and you were staying not too far away, and in my book they've actually, one of them mentions that every day in the morning we used to go down to train and we used to see Nadia, the great Nadia, training in the next patch of green there on her own, doing through her core exercises, and her focus never wavered. She would never look at us and all because she was so focused, and that's what you realize, that to win at the top level, it's not just the dedication required in that arena, it's how you approach the Olympic Games.
Yeah, that's true. It's an entire journey of years of training. I mean, basically the competition, it's an easy part, because the hard part is in a gym, competition, you come and do one routine. You know, in a gym you do 7, 8. So, but you just have to do the right one.
Okay, that's the mantra for success if you want to be great, like the great Nadia. But did it suffocate you when you went back? You told me that when you went back home, there were 10,000 people. Everyone wanted a piece of you. You probably wanted to spend time with family because you'd been away for so long. Did it started to get suffocating for you to dealing with the fame?
Not really, because they were my people. So it was a big mob at the airport. But then we were protected by that. So it's not like people came from all over the world to meet with me. I'm sure there were a lot of demands, but there was this stop. You can't do that.
Okay. But did life change financially for you? Were you were the family not being able to have
no,
better,
because
better
gymnastics was, I didn't do gymnastics to become rich, first of all. And gymnastics was an amateur sport. So you don't get paid, you know. I mean, you receive some money from the government for the success. All athletes receive that. It's calculated by somehow. But there was, you know, I'm 15, I don't think about, you know, you can't do sports because you want to become rich. You know, the richness is a part of your experience, and, you know, and you just enjoy the moment, and then you see what's coming up after that.
But it's surprising you say that, because across the world, anyone wins an Olympic gold, an Olympic medal, you know, it just changes their life commercially as well. But here it was, perhaps you're right, it was a different setup. And when did it start to go sour for you? Because the years leading up to Moscow were a bit troubled for you. Did you face suffocation?
Not really. It's not about suffocation. It's about when I was done with the sport and I was trying to do other things to, not in the quality of the athlete, but in the quality of an adult, to be able to, you know, travel and help in some way with what I know. My travel was cut off because my coach left to the US and never came back. So I believe there was that fear that maybe I go and I don't come back, which I wouldn't have done at all. So that's why I thought that I didn't think was fair for me. It wasn't fair to not be allowed to be able to travel and to enjoy and to meet my friends. So that's why I decided to leave.
Okay. But when you left to the US, it was still difficult for you. There were issues there. But then, as I said, one day, your would-be husband in the future arrived. Was that the start of a second phase in life, which has been so happy for you? You've got this center there. And as I said, he came as a knight in shining armor in his helicopter to meet you. You reconnected. The second phase of your life started.
It kind of sounds like a bad script for a movie.
It's actually a great script for a movie. It's a great script. The knight in shining armor, not on a horse, but in a helicopter.
Yeah, well, you know, we've known each other, so he was there to welcome me. And you know, going back to the, I don't complain that I had, you know, difficulties in my life, because I had a lot of happiness. Look at my career. Look what I achieved when I was a kid. You know, it was a little bit difficult after that, and then what people do usually, you stay and try make it better if you can. If you're not, you do something else. So everybody has their own choice and possibilities. But Bart has welcomed me because he knew me from, you know, competition, and he wanted to help me with his manager, and. But I lived in Montreal for a short period of time, and then I moved to Oklahoma. And you know, you start every day, you try to make something to see where you fit. My background is sport. I know gymnastics, so I thought I should stay around something that I know.
Okay, and that's life, and we're sitting here in Monaco discussing your great career. You know, in India, we're starting to see this new craze in gymnastics thanks to Deepa Karmakar.
Yes.
You saw her at Rio. You've even written the foreword for her book. Your advice to someone like a Deepa and a new generation of aspiring gymnasts in India?
I think it's great that you have her, and then definitely she got to this level because of her hard work, and she was also motivated to do something, you know, sport-wise good in her life, and she's a great gymnast, and she does an unbelievable vault that not too many people dare to do that, and I wish her all the best, and she's moving on to compete for sure in 2020, and just take it easy, you know, be healthy, because that's the most important thing, and just love what you do, and she's a great asset to your country, and because of her, a lot of little ones will do gymnastics.
Like they did because of you. My final question, we are here for the Laureus Awards, but Laureus is something very close to your heart. How's the journey been, and what does... Laureus isn't just about the awards, it's about sport for good, it's about the power of sport to heal, and you're very passionate about it as well.
Yes, I am, because, you know, sport has changed my life, and I've traveled a lot with the Sport for Good Foundation, and all of us, the Academy member, we volunteer our time to use sport as a tool to change the life of many kids who are in deep, deep trouble. And I've done a lot of traveling and, you know, to see how Laureus and sport gives the opportunity that kids that live in terrible poverty. Laureus bring sports to them, and they learn respect, they learn competition, they learn what's challenging. They're getting better in school because of that, because they do sports. And they get a chance to get out of the poverty that they live in and travel and see the other part of the world, which they don't know that exists.
Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for inspiring, even today after so many years, inspiring new kids, not just to lead a better quality of life, but to constantly achieve perfection. Thank you for giving me the time to sit next to you and have this opportunity. And since you are the epitome of perfection, how much out of 10 would you say this interview you would give me?
You did pretty good, yeah. I'll give you a 10.
Okay, you made my day.
But thank you for the book that you gave me from Deepa. Yeah, I love it, and I will read it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A pleasure.
Thank you.